Hey, Coach Rocky Lee. So today I want to share my story with you. My story starts with a lot of pain and a lot of trauma from the male sex. And initially it started with my dad. My dad not being um, the type of man that I imagine a man should be. A sober man, um, a responsible man who stuck with his family, who could take accountability and stop using alcohol and be productive. And my dad was not those things, in my own personal opinion. I gathered that opinion because my mom was murdered by another man who was not accountable for who he was, who lacked self-esteem and that led him to murder my mom. That man was my little brother's father, and that was our mom he took from us. My little brother never even really made a connection with his mom, nor his father. Over the years, as I grew older, out of um, lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, I did a lot of reactionary thinking, processing, and utilizing information that I gathered about all of this information. And so I misinformed myself, and that created some open doors into my spirit that allowed me to feel certain emotions, and those things became a part of my soul. And so I'm gonna try to accelerate this story as quickly as I can because I don't want it to be long and drawn out, but I do want it to be an explanation to elaborate on my coaching purpose, my coaching focus, and my coaching client. Okay, so moving along. Um, Over the next few years after my mom was murdered, I encountered a lot of men who introduced trauma into my life, which opened more doors into my life, of my spiritual life, to be cursed versus blessed. We don't learn about curses and blessings when we're a child. In fact, some of us never learn about cursings or blessings either. But anyway, I was fortunate enough to find a book in the course of my studies called Shadowboxing uh, by Charles Malone. Henry Malone. And that was very powerful. I'm a person who has to know the how, the why, and understand things so that I can unravel them and comprehend them and 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 fix them or utilize them, things like that. So that book really helped me understand how doors get open in our lives. So I had doors opened by other people, their actions, their thoughts, their words. I had doors opened by my own self, by my beliefs and my actions and my um, things that I brought into my atmosphere by speaking them out. So every door that I could open had been open. Every door that could be opened by someone else had been opened in my course of my life. Um, so I had to endure a lot of trials and a lot of trauma before it set into my spirit that I was creating a vacuum that trapped dirt, trapped bad things. Things like a feeling of self hate, a feeling of hate towards others, especially at this time in my life, men. However, eventually, um, I would find therapy, and in those sessions, I would discover all of these things. And in the healing process of all of that pain, I realized that I had learned to forgive the men who I encountered and men in general, because in learning to forgive myself and understand myself and understand my little brother, like up until the point that we both um, ended up getting therapy, which we were both well into our 40s before that happened. We didn't know how to shut those doors, and it caused us both a lot of additional compacted trauma and pain. And well, thinking about that brought this place in my heart that was like opening an understanding of my compassion for men, which is crazy because you would think, oh, you've been abused by men so many times. Why would you have compassion towards them? Well, because I also was learning to nurture my spirit, and I understood that my spirit needed that nurturing to open me up to allowing myself to get therapy and get the other additional help I needed. And so I wanted to teach guys how to nurture their spirit so that they could understand as well how to access the other areas, like utilizing tools like rehab, therapy, whatever other resources they needed, mentors, people to help teach them and guide them, coaching, whatever, so that they could get to the access they needed so they could fix themselves. Man, I encountered men in every walk of my life. Like I have 3 sons, and they've experienced some negative components to their life. The lack of their fathers being present and being a male example in their lives. The my own part I played in perhaps giving them a feeling of disrespect for women because they have different fathers. Okay, all the ungodly things I did as well, but all the rejection and abandonment that they felt from their father's absences, and even when they weren't absent, their rejection, their lack of interest, their lack of involvement, their lack of knowledge and skills to be men themselves. So the next phase of that was so I started feeling a lot of empathy for the guys honestly it goes back even further. When I was driving the school bus, I noticed that most of the little boys didn't have a dad bringing them to the bus or picking them up from school. And I thought about my own brother and how he didn't have any guys out there supporting him when he played ball or when he was interested in sports or interested in the things that men teach their kids, their sons especially. So I didn't know how to handle that because at the time I was angry with my brother. I was angry with his father. I was angry with my father. I was angry at my dad for not being a good enough husband and man to stay married to my mom. And then she wouldn't have had to go get with another man, and he wouldn't have killed her. And he killed her. I was angry at him because he took her from me and my brother. And I was angry at my brother because all the benefits he seemed to reap in my child like mine from being, abandoned by his father and stripped of his mother. Like, hey, I lost my mom too. And out of selfishness and um, whatever I wanted, I was angry at him for the attention he got, for the catering to that he got, for the things he got that I didn't feel I was getting. Eventually I learned to just like not really trust or rely on or even involve or interact with people, because I didn't feel like people were a positive resource uh, for a positive outcome of life. So I really started reading my Bible a lot, and God was revealing the understanding of what love was, unconditional love. But I wasn't quite sure how to sustain that feeling, interacting over time with people who still hadn't got to that place with their relationship with God, so that He could minister to their spirit and to their heart to have that same unconditional love. And so my love wasn't unconditional. It was partially consequential and depended on what I was getting back. But as you get older and you have more needs and you have more things going on in your life, you learn that there's people who will do things for you who have nothing to gain, no purpose, no ulterior motive behind why they're doing it. And the way that makes you feel is one thing, because they're doing it for you. But the way it makes you feel when you flip that around and you start being the one who does that for someone else, I started noticing that the feeling I got from that was even greater than the feeling I got because someone thought enough of me to do those things for me. So I wanted to be the giver. Every time I would involve myself in a relationship with someone, sometimes male or female, in the empathy I felt for them, it would turn into something intimate, something provocative, something to do with passion, but not compassion. It's a difference. And so I wasn't ready. Timing is everything. I wasn't ready to move into that part of my life, but I knew there was something inside of me that wanted that to work out different. And every time I would be disappointed that it wouldn't work out the way my heart wanted it, it would work out the way my soul, my mind, my will, my emotions would take over, and they were bigger than me. Which brought me to the studying with Dorinda Trick, studying about the human spirit. Heck, I didn't even know the human spirit. My spirit was different than God's spirit when I started that journey. I just thought the spirit was the spirit because, I don't know. Maybe I don't know why I didn't get that. But I guess the link that people always make between the spirit, I just thought it was one spirit. Not that I had my own individual spirit, which makes sense because if it was one spirit, we wouldn't have our individual will. But because we have individual will, we have an individual spirit that's accepting and receiving of nurturing, or that shrinks to the overpowerment of the soul and the lack of empowerment of the spirit. So my spirit has shrunk, and I felt weak. I felt incapable of fulfilling my purpose because I knew this was my purpose. The men in my life, sometimes, especially my ex-husband, he would say, I wish you would stop talking so much. You talk too much. And I thought, wow, like, um, okay, I need to stop talking so much. And I remembered that as a child, they said, be seen, not heard. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm violating some code of, you know, womanhood by talking too much. But it wasn't that I talked too much. It was that what I was saying was too much to be heard by that particular person. They weren't ready. And I had to think, okay, everyone ain't ready. I wasn't always ready. So as time went on, I dealt with every obstacle that was coming against me because I knew in my heart that my purpose was to talk to people. But that didn't seem like something that I was going to be able to prosper from. But I still wanted to do it. So I pressed forward towards my mark, and I never stopped going to church. I never stopped spending time with God. I mean, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to make it to the next minute without God. Inhale and don't breathe, and God's breath doesn't fulfill my life. And it's as simple as that, for real. But I can go deeper, because I didn't lead myself to my understanding so that it wouldn't be my own. Once I was understanding knowledge that I was gaining, and it wasn't my own understanding I leaned on, then things became even more clear. Seems kind of contradictory, huh? Leaning on someone else's understanding is clearer than leaning on your own. But our thoughts are not his, and neither are our ways his. So if we lean into our own knowledge, understanding, and ways, it ain't gonna be the right ones. It ain't gonna turn out right. It ain't gonna turn out, it's not gonna be fulfilling of your purpose. And fulfillment of the Father is like no other fulfillment you could ever get. Nothing can fulfill you like what your Creator has for you, what He designed for you. And how do you become knowledgeable of that? You have to have a relationship with Him. You have to talk to Him and listen while He talks to you, while He fulfills you. And that means your spirit has to be big enough to hear that, use that, and understand that and use that. So my spirit had to get to a point where it was growing. And that spiritual nurturing course really helped me out, along with the understanding of how to be delivered out of the bad parts of my soul. And that came into play when I started therapy. In everybody's life, God gives us these Selah moments. And in 2016, I had a miscarriage. And I ended up in the hospital because my mental health broke down. But I needed that Selah moment. I needed that pause in my life. At that point, I was just I had just a slither, like a small, tiny little remnant of life, of anything to do with living, that I was just barely, that was hanging on to me, because I wasn't even hanging on to the thread. It was hanging on to me. And I was dangling out there. And I started to make changes in my life. I started eliminating things that God would put on my spirit. And when God puts something on your spirit, there is no question in your mind when God puts something in your spirit. Because it's just like any relationship. Like, when you meet somebody and you like that person, and when you see them, when you interact with them, you feel some kind of way. So when God's spirit connects with your spirit, you feel something inside. It's the same feeling. Um, so if I'm speaking to my Father God and I hear his voice, it quickens my spirit. It quickens, it emanates joy. It resolves me in peace. It allows me to be gentle and kind. It gives me the ability to be patient with others. And so as I went out of um, those phases and became more empathetic and compassionate again, I noticed that things changed for me with my interaction with people again. You know, when I started working at the county jail, I had my smile. Everybody knows about my smile. My whole face wrinkles up and it does what it does. My expressive face. So anyway, so when I started working at the jail, I mean, I was in a new place. Like, I was making good money. I was able to interact with people again. I was serving and teaching, and I was in my own personal heaven, being at that jail until the devil would throw darts from the coworkers or whatever that didn't quite accept me for who I was, and would sometimes cause me not to accept my own self for who I was. And that was part of the nature of the job as well. So, you know, I had to be mindful of that also. But when I was there, um, I grew dark and I grew resentful. Um, I didn't have the ability to accept that those people, especially the men from my community, that they would just return like a revolving door. It began to sever my heart from my whole body. It severed my heart from the rest of me. And I buried my heart somewhere deep inside because it was aching at the pain that I saw in the guys, especially that were coming into jail, who just seemed like they couldn't feel like they were enough for the world. And I began to think about my little brother. Well, I thought about all my cousins. You know, the reason I had moved partly to Alabama was I wanted to run from the inheritance of my family curses into my children's lives. And again, I have 3 sons, and they came from the heritage of men who have been in bondage, in physical bad health, mental conditions, trauma, and spiritual bondage of all kinds of things that were opened up in our whole family bloodline. And I didn't want my boys to experience that. I didn't want my boys subjected to those curses, especially, of course, not my daughter, but I want to talk to you about my sons. And so I thought that if I moved them outside the realm of my family, the influence of my family, that I could remove some of the opportunities for the devil to get through the doors of some things. Again, I'm not going to deny I was not in a good place myself. So everything that I did was not right. Everything that I did was not perfect. But I was learning and growing and knowing better and doing better. Not just for myself, but for my sons. I always kept them in sports, around positive influences in the church, making and setting examples for them what a man really should look like, what a man sounds like, what a man feels like. But I wasn't addressing those things, like their own feelings, their own actions, their own things. Like I didn't know how to. Why I hadn't addressed my own. So as I became equipped to address those things with my own kids, and I began to realize I was addressing some of those issues with the inmates. And then later, um, in my course of therapy, I realized how much hurt my brother probably had because his pain was compounded in losing our mom. He lost his mother and his father by the hands of his own father. That's a lot. That's a lot. But the sad part is no one took the time to help us heal. We lived in a state of denial to the situation that happened with our mom and by the hands of our fathers, because my father included. His lack of spousal support sent her to another negative situation. Her father, I don't know their interaction, but I know she had loving brothers. I don't really know the whole situation with my mom, so I can only address the fathers because I know their actions, I know their roles in this whole situation with my brother. And so it became an akin situation with me going to therapy, and I found out he was going to therapy too. And God, I was so happy because I knew how much therapy was helping me come to my identity, my truth. And I wanted him to come to that too, but I didn't know how that journey was going to be for him. I knew that it was definitely going to be a journey that he needed, and that no one gave either one of us. And that hurt, that we had to spend over 40 years of our lives not walking our purpose because we had not, no one had addressed our pain. Even though they knew there was pain, no one made it okay for us to address our pain because no one talked about it. And that hurt me, but it helped me. It hurt me because it hadn't been done, but it helped me because I knew I wanted to see it get done. I wanted to see my sons. I wanted to see my uncles, my cousins, my father, my stepfather. Yeah, even my stepfather who took my mom's life. I wanted to see someone address the issues, the hurt, the pain that drove them to be who they were or who they were not. And with every passing male who seemed to go through my life, I wanted to see their hurts not exist with the passion I felt for my sons and my brother. I wanted to reach out to them in that same passion. And my coaching avatar has become that person. That's what my goal is in coaching. I want to be a vessel to allow God's Spirit to come into those people's lives, those men's lives who have no other vessel, who had no other vessel, and who want to access a vessel. I want to be one of the people out there who cares about those issues, who cares about those concerns, who assists, leads, and guides. I don't want to say lead. I don't like to use that word, lead. The only part of me that can lead is the Spirit in me. So I do this from my spirit, from my heart. And I guide from that space, from that place. Men who want something different, who want to feel, I want to make a space for it to be okay for men to feel the pain, the processing of getting rid of the pain, the potential to get rid of the pain, the possibilities. I want to allow myself to be open to create a space for men in my life that are not there for intimacy and things like that. I don't want, I want to be your sister. I want to be your sister. My brother, allow me to be your sister. Allow me to lend you an ear, lend you a shoulder. Allow me to lend you a hand, a space to open you up to a new understanding, a new acceptance, a new accountability. Because once you know better, you will do better. You should do better. Knowing better, you should do better. I want to see you do better. In fact, I want to see you serve your purpose. So I want to see you do your best. My avatar, when I first made it for coaching, it was named Corey. Corey is a person that is unidentified, male or female. Because Corey was me before it was my brother.